This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Now it's time for Spiritual Learning with Priestess Lilly.
Welcome to my radio show, Priestess Lilly, Sacred Heart Healer, Space Holder, and Spiritual Life Coach. Hi, I'm Priestess Lilly. Welcome. This radio show podcast, I've helped to assist humanity rise the consciousness through connection and holding space for thought-activating conversations with heart-centered leaders, wisdom keepers, and divine humans expanding into their authenticity and soul purpose. This sacred vessel is a soulful activation, a recalling, a reclaiming parts of yourself that you have forgotten in order for us to heal and walk in the cyclic nature of ourselves, Mother Earth, and the universal energy. Shannon is an inner healing coach, a Reiki practitioner with a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. She believes we all have wounds within us that we inherit or are developed that then dictate our lives today, getting stuck in pain, overthinking, unhealthy relationships, and so much more. She is passionate. She is passionate about using the holistic approach to help people connect those dots and begin healing those wounds to then consciously create their lives rather than fighting against life from the wound, an unconscious place. I welcome Shannon today, and I know that this conversation will activate you into recalling, into feeling and seeing parts of yourself that you may not want to or wish to. Welcome. I'm so excited to be interviewing you because I think that your work and the topic that we're going to talk about today is so needed, that, you know, an open discussion about this. So welcome to my podcast radio show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Now you're over in America. What part of America?
Yes, I'm in San Diego, California, sunny San Diego.
Yeah, as I'm waking up to absolute snow and rain outside the door, freezing, hanging out in my dressing gown. So, you know, I think when I feel into trauma or, you know, the masculine and feminine energy, I think there's a lot of things that we aren't even aware of what is actually suppressing us or contracting us or, you know, expanding us as a whole. So let's just get into it. So what drew you deeply to this work?
So I was pretty much living in trauma since the day I was born, and to varying degrees throughout my life. And I believe it was when my father finally passed when I was in my early 20s, where I started being more conscious and active and trying to heal from that trauma. But it was still very early on. I was trying so many different things. I'm a naturally curious person, very exploratory, but I was conscious that I wasn't happy and something needed to change, but I just didn't know how. So I just kept trying so many different things. And it was finally when I was a few years back where I guess I kind of had my big aha moment. But what started me on this journey was a lifetime of trauma.
And I think that's really important because I think quite often we as human beings don't actually, we just normalize everything. Mm-hmm. We actually normalize our lives and go, oh, I haven't got it that bad. Like that person over there has got it way more worse than me. So we normalize our own trauma without actually, in our own pain and our own uncomfortableness. And we do that whole comparison thing, which is a sister wound in itself. But we do that whole comparison thing, which actually, kind of gives us the tick of, I don't need to work on that, or the get out of jail card, or would you agree?
I agree fully. I feel like there's so many facets to this. I've experienced people who say, I've experienced too much trauma. There's no help for me. So therefore, I'm now going to suppress this. Or exactly to your point, mine isn't as bad as that other person. So I'm also going to suppress this. But then there's just that element of safety of, I have experienced trauma and I don't want to keep experiencing trauma. This hurts too bad. So I'm going to suppress this and numb it out. There's just so many different elements to why people don't necessarily deal with it. But also they can be aware of the trauma and just don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out from under it. So that leaves them just trying to fight through and trying different things like I did that weren't working. And then at some point they might get frustrated. Like, I'm trying. I feel like I'm trying. Why isn't this making me feel better? And so again, they give up because nothing's working.
And I think that's really important, because I feel like when we step on the awakening experience, or step forward to actually, work through our own traumas, work through our own, work on our own healing journey, it's not a one shoe fits all. It really isn't. I look at my own, I look at like my own clients, but also look at my own journey. And my journey was, really messy at times, really messy, dark night of the soul stuff. But at the same, and I think that's the thing, but I survived it and I got through it. And that's when I had the aha moments. And it actually, to heal yourself is the greatest gift, or to start the process, it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, isn't it?
It is. I have goosebumps right now. It is so powerful. The biggest aha moment for me was stop looking to all of these external factors. Stop trying to control why this person is doing what they're doing, trying to get love from them, trying to get them to see how you're feeling and what you're saying. Stop looking to all these experts who supposedly know you better than you know yourself. You're trying to control your life and make yourself feel better by looking outside of yourself constantly. But the moment that I had the aha moment of, wait a second, when I really look at myself, go deep into the shadows of myself and start focusing on that, everything around me changes. So an example of that would be if someone does something that really pisses you off and you say, okay, well, what is this showing me about myself? Boom, you just got your power back in that moment. That is so powerful. I could not agree more. It's all about that inner work.
And I think that's really important, because we're so used to be gaslit by, going to an expert, going here, going there, doing a course, reading a book. But we've actually forgotten the actual beauty of our own knowing and our own self, and, what we need in order to heal.
And it's okay to go to experts and read a book. Like, those things are super helpful on your journey. But it's when you are so connected to your point, connected to yourself. If you're reading a book and you're like, this message just doesn't resonate with me, and that's okay. And then you put that particular book down instead of thinking, this book is the end all be all. I need to listen to single thing it says. This is the ultimate truth. Ignoring your own gut feelings. But it's just a combination of going back and forth between the two, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that for myself, I'm huge on books pick me. Books pick me at particular times. And I might not even be looking for a book. And, yesterday I just was walking down in the local store and picked up a book. Didn't even read it. I just went, oh, that's the book I need. So I think books pick us. And, you know, sometimes I buy books and they'll sit on my bookshelf or sit on my bedside table for a month. And then all of a sudden, it's that one, I need to start reading. You pick it up and then you're just into it. But it's right there when you needed it.
I have had the same exact experiences, so I could not agree more. Yep.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And I feel, and it's the same with, you know, messages on the TV, podcasts. I believe, you know, I pick, my clients for me come for my podcast, right, with the right people come at the right time for what the collective is needing to hear. Mm-hmm. It's completely aligned intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a big part of your own work is around masculine and feminine. What ways has woman really been suppressed by masculine energy?
Yes, so this has been part of my journey in this lifetime for sure. Getting out from that oppressive masculine energy, because growing up, I had, you know, a father who was fighting his own demons, who did kind of hold the power, so to speak, behave in a toxic manner, and a mother, this bleeding, compassionate heart, unhappy in this marriage, you know, being a detriment to her health even. And so that's what I'm witnessing growing up. That's what's ingrained in me. And so part of my journey too, to heal my wounds and have my own awakening, was trial and error with a lot of unhealthy relationships myself. And what it comes down to is, I mean, there's many layers for the feminine energy. You know, we're conditioned, obviously, by society to not speak our needs, not speak our truth, put ourselves last, you know, put everybody else before us. That's a big layer that we're constantly getting messages about. And then the other layer is, yes, what did you see growing up? What is your dynamic with the feminine? What is your dynamic with the masculine? And how are you potentially replaying that? And so I had to learn that, you know, I was giving my power away to the masculine in search of that love that I didn't necessarily receive growing up. And you know, it seems textbook, quote unquote, you know, you're searching for what you didn't have. But that's what's so hard when you're in the midst of this, is you're just so desperately seeking that love that maybe you're consciously aware of, yeah, this relationship isn't good for me, but you don't know how to get the love. You just want to get love. You just want the love. And that's when the inner healing journey comes into play is, okay, so I'm not getting love from this relationship. Why am I holding on to this relationship? And then how can I give love to myself? And when you start healing your own stuff, you start looking at the ways you're giving your power away. For example, ignoring your intuition for the sake of wanting to believe this person just because you want to stay with them, just because you want that love. When you start looking at these patterns and really diving in where that comes from and healing those wounds and giving to yourself what you need instead of looking to other people to give you what you need, then you take your power back. Then you heal your feminine. You take your power back away from the masculine. And the more and more you continue to do that as a feminine, the more that you will attract in those healthy masculine people who mirror that back to you.
Holy shit. Did you read my book, sister? Because
I did not.
That's my journey, 100%. I was just like, holy shit, she's talking about me. Totally me. Mine was, when you were speaking, absolutely my first marriage. And I wanted, you know, I ignored my intuition, ignored my knowing, because I wasn't allowed to accept it. I wasn't allowed to be me at a younger age. And so I ignored it. I felt like, you know, I absolutely ignored it. And I married my first husband, you know, not knowing at the time, but I married him really wanting my mother's approval, wanting my mother's love. And so there were so many intertwined similarities in behavior, absolutely everything. And, you know, that was one of my deepest activations. I remember going to the doctor you know, I was just saying this to someone else actually the other day. You know, when you're really awakening spiritually, it can seem like you're going crazy. It can seem, yes. And I think this is important to tell the listeners, because I think a lot of people are awakening right now. It can really feel like you're actually going frigging crazy. And, you know, there's so many times in my life where I have thought, this doesn't make sense. Like, I can't be seeing this. This doesn't make sense. And I remember going, and it's the anxiety, and it's the not, you know, seeing things that might not normally be there. And God, I went to an eye specialist because I was seeing things that weren't there. And they tested. I was there for 2 hours. Well, they tested my eyes. And you know, I remember thinking, during just hearing what you said, I remember being in the car driving back from the doctors, and I still very much clicked into my marriage. And I remember sitting in the car driving back to Meraki, and I heard my Nana speak, and my Nana's in spirit, and I looked over and she was in the passenger seat, and she said, "You don't need to take those tablets. You need to leave your husband." I pulled over, because I seriously thought I was going crazy, and I seriously thought this world would be better off without me. And I pulled over, threw the tablets out to the window, and literally bawled for about 2 hours, just sitting in the car, bawling my eyes out on the side of the country road. And I remember thinking, right, I need to connect. My Nana's really there, and I need to connect back to my spirituality. And that was my activation, awakening, one of my awakenings, to start to really take back my feminine energy and take back my power outside of my relationship. And, you know, I was probably in fight and flight because I didn't leave straight away. And then that was also the activation to study counselling. So it's quite because I was like, I wanted to learn more about human behaviour.
Yes. And you're right. Being very intuitively connected. I mean, everyone can be intuitively connected, but that is a very feminine quality. And that is just another thing that we're taught in society, and then through our upbringing or relationships or what have you, to suppress that. So that's definitely a big one. And I think another important thing to add on to that, I know you said when you're having an awakening, you might feel like you're going crazy, which is absolutely true. But you also, I think an element is when someone's going through an awakening, they think, okay, everything's going to be super easy and great and rainbows and butterflies after this. But it's quite the opposite. Everything falls apart because you are clearing out so much that isn't serving you anymore. So our human selves are like, what is happening? My life is falling apart. This isn't safe. Fight and flight mode, to your point. And so then they might retreat and stop and ignore it even more. So I think it's just important for everybody to hear right now that if you have an awakening, if you're following your intuition and things start falling apart, seemingly to your human mind, keep going. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's for your greatest good.
Oh, totally. And I think, you know, for the many times that, you know, I've been thinking, holy crap, can I really do this? Can I really say this? You know, been on the bathroom floor crying. I wouldn't be the person I am today. No, I wouldn't be that person that I am today. And you know what? I've still got so much more learning to do. There's never an end journey in our, because we're consistently, the collective's evolving and we're evolving.
Yes, agreed. And this is also a message I try to tell people is, yes, the healing journey and the learning journey is never ending. But once you kind of have your awakening and you're more consciously creating your life, it's just easier and more fun even to deal with the things that life throws your way. Like pain is unavoidable. It will still come in your life, but having a more conscious life is another world compared to living in that unconscious, wounded place. So pain is unavoidable. It will still happen, but it's so worth it to go through this awakening conscious journey for sure.
And I also want to say this, I know that in my own experience, and a lot for my clients, when you start this process, you know, you think you've hit the bottom of one layer of whatever you're healing or whatever you're feeling into or needing to let go of. And then there's another layer after that, and then there's another layer. You're always deepening into another part of your soul, another part of your being, another part of a wound that needs to be released. Have you found that, honey?
Oh, so well said. I have definitely had my moments where I'm like, how many lessons do I have to learn? Like, I'm just, why does it keep coming? So I've definitely had those moments, but it's so true because you just have to think about how intricate and complex these wounds are. So again, like there's that level of awareness. Okay, I see this wound, but then you have to go deep and deeper and deeper and deeper to really figure out the origins of it, how it's impacting you inside, how it's impacting you today in your life, how it's making you show up on the world, how it's making you relate and see other people. There's just so many elements that go into a wound. And it's not like one situation happened, this wound was created, period. No, it's like so many different situations are feeding into that wound, and that wound has like a cousin wound and a sister wound. Like they're all like so interrelated. So yes, it's a process.
And I think that's really important with what you just shared. You know, so many of the wound might be this, but there's so many different elements to it. There's society, there's our conditioning, there's our beliefs, there's ancestral lineage. Like it's not just, it looks like a circle. It's just this. It's multifaceted, multi-layered. And that's where I mean, like when you feel like you're just taken off ripped off the sticking, you know, the sticky, and you think, oh yeah, it's only this. That's where I mean there's so many layers for us to go deeper.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And this is the thing why not many people sign up to do their healing too.
Yes, exactly. Like they might peel off that first layer and then it hurts and they're scared and they don't know what to do. And then they put that sticky back on. And that's why, you know, the books and the podcast and working with somebody is beneficial, is helpful, it's transformative. Just along that journey, when you are doing those things, make sure you're still listening to what feels right and good to you. Because you don't have to do this alone. It can feel very isolating on the healing journey, especially if you're, you know, in these social contracts of this is who I am. And so everybody around me likes me to be this way. And then when you start healing and people are like confused on why the dynamics are changing and why you're speaking your needs more and why you're not as much of a people pleaser. And then you might start getting, you know, consciously or subconsciously from other people, things that make you start feeling shame or question yourself or revert back to the old ways. But can feel very isolating and scary. So that's why getting help is just so important, especially when you're first starting the journey.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I totally agree with everything you've just shared. Because when we energetically shift, people around us feel that. And then you all of a sudden, you might be shifting or wanting to speak differently in a peer group or differently in a family situation or starting to put some energetic boundaries in place for your highest good. You know, that's where people don't, you know, if they're only knowing you for 30 years looking like this, it can really feel absolutely awkward as hell to speak your needs or put those boundaries in. And that is I know that for myself, that is a really confronting, challenging space to all of a sudden say, actually, this is what I need, or actually, I'm not available for that.
Absolutely. And some people in your life will cheer you on. Some people in your life, it will be uncomfortable, but you'll grow through it together. Mm-hmm. And then there will be other people in your life who are going to fall away when you start doing that. And that's totally okay. But this is exactly the thing with the feminine energy that we're talking about. so many of my clients that come to me are women who are terrified of speaking their voice and their needs.
Yeah.
Because again, we're so conditioned not to. In our relationships, we're then showing up that way. And, the masculine has healing to do to allow us to do that. The feminine has healing to do to actually do it. So it's both. But that is one of the most consistent things that I see with my female clients is the fear and inability to speak their needs. And we're not taught to do it.
Yeah. And I know that for myself, just me speaking my intuition and my intuition the last 6 months against the collective narrative, that has been very challenging for people that have known me for most of my life. That has been really challenging, that all of a sudden I might not be part of the collective narrative. I have, for the first time in my life, chosen my intuition, which is actually my feminine energy, which is something I've claimed small elements of it, but to fully claim it, my intuition, me and my ability to trust, my using my voice differently, that has been that a lot of people around me have struggled. I've been very challenging, and they've really struggled with me. But it's not about them. Where I think people think it's about them when we energetically shift. It's actually not about them. It's actually about what we need for our higher selves. We're all on our own individual soul journey. And I think we all of a sudden, if someone energetically shifts, we think it's about us. What did we do wrong? What have we done? Well, you might not have done anything wrong.
And correct. It's not about them, but that's a prime opportunity. So those people who are uncomfortable with you speaking your voice, those people, instead of looking at the external, why is my external world shifting? What is she doing? I'm scared. That's terrible. She shouldn't do that. We don't do that. Instead, that's a moment that would be so powerful for them to say, what is this showing me about myself? Because what it's showing them is they wish they could do that, but they're scared. They have their own wounds that developed because somewhere along the line, when they tried to speak their voice, they were shut down, or they got punished, or they were in trouble, or they weren't safe anymore. Really, you standing in your power is activating their wounds. And instead of, some people who are living unconsciously might judge you or look at you differently because of that. But people who want to step on the conscious healing path will take that and look at that as a reflection of what's going on inside of them.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And this is the thing, as a society, it's easier for us to throw shade. And I've done it probably, I think consciously we've all done it to other people, peers. It's easy for us to throw shade than actually look within and go, why am I shaming this person? Why am I putting shade on this person? When really I should be celebrating this person, that they're wanting to actually own and heal this part of themselves, or what is this showing about me? Exactly what you shared. But naturally, society doesn't want to do that. Because all of a sudden someone could be walking a different way. But this is if we're to heal our own selves and heal the collective, and I've spoken about this thousands of times in my group space, so this won't be a new conversation for the girls. If we're here to heal the collective and build humanity to a higher conscious vibration, this is the parts of ourselves that we need to feel into.
And talk about feminine energy. I mean, looking at a woman who is so in her feminine energy, that was triggering for me back in the day. Why does she get to love her body so much? Why is she just in this graceful flow? And my feminine energy had to be suppressed too. I was a wounded feminine. And yeah, looking at that nowadays, when I see a woman who's just so in her feminine energy, when I see women loving their bodies, when I see women talking about their periods and how that is normal and healthy and beautiful and so many things, now I'm like, okay, this is a great sign that I am loving them for this, and then I am loving myself for that too. It's like such a good radar check of where are you on your journey based on how you're viewing the other people around you. And then another element of that is also back in the day, I was in victim mode. And this is going to be very triggering to people because they don't want to look at that part of themselves. And so I like to make it very, very clear that these wounds were developed within you, or you inherited these wounds. So it is not your fault. Okay, so I'm not blaming anyone for having these wounds, but for example, when I was in a relationship with somebody, and it was an unhealthy relationship, stayed in it far too long, looking back on it, was this person maybe a little bit selfish and unable to open up emotionally and quick to temper? Yes, absolutely. But looking back, am I able to fully blame that person, so to speak? Absolutely not, because that person was just reflecting to me the wounds that I had in terms of abandoning myself to please their needs. And so I don't look at that version of myself and blame myself like it's my fault that I was in that relationship. I just know that that version of me was wounded and therefore allowing that level of love. But the me now would never be in that relationship. So it's just about kind of stepping out of the victim mode to empower yourself. It's not about shaming or blaming yourself. It's just empowering yourself to know that you can change. You do deserve better. And that starts with the inner healing journey, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the thing. I know that when I was in my toxic marriage, I'd switch from victim to rescuer, from victim to rescuer. And I was very much swinging and dancing between those two identities. And, not until obviously I left and started my journey in healing, but started my journey also to become a counselor, did I actually start to then, I remember there's so many light bulb moments and the mind mapping going, oh my God, what is all this about? And then I wanted to consume more information because because it all made sense. Like it actually all made sense. And I think that this is the thing. These are the conversations that I think we're also too afraid to even have. Admit that we have shit that we've got to work on.
Yes. We all have shit to work on. And again, it could stem from a wound of people not wanting to share the shit they have to work on because they're afraid that makes them look less than. They're afraid that people won't love them because of what they are thinking and feeling. They're afraid that they'll be outcasted. They all stem from these wounds, but everybody has it. Like you and I talked about earlier, we'll continue to be learning on our journey for the rest of this life. Everyone is, and we're in it together. So let's just keep talking about it.
Yeah. And I think when we actually start to have open conversations, because women, we're taught at a very early age, to shame our bodies, to shame. We're in shame, guilt. What mother does not have carry guilt? Comparison. Comparing ourselves to, other women that might not look the same as us. And that's, through so much social conditioning in society, we carry automatically by default, so much, I want to say conditioning, but I want to say just societal conditioning. Realizing or having a space or place to actually even speak it without our own shit, without our own ancestral stuff going on.
Right. And if those are the things that we're coming into automatically, like that's our programming from day one as women, then of course we're not going to trust other women to have these safe spaces to talk because we're in comparison, we're in guilt, we're in shame and judgment So it's like we're looking at them as an other, as a person who can hurt us, as a person we can't trust, because we're taught that we need to be better than them to get the attention and the love. But it's the opposite. That's looking at that's looking to like the patriarchy society or paradigm. That's looking to the masculine to tell us how to live our lives. We're looking to them to decide for us. But taking our power back is the inner healing we've been talking about, but also the coming together with other women. Because why not? There is no comparison. There's enough for everybody. And we're all just struggling with what we've been programmed to believe. And that comes out in different ways. It manifests in different forms. But that's all we're operating from. That's our operating systems. And so we need to come together as women, like rewrite that programming, create a new programming.
Yeah, totally agree. And I really feel like right now more than ever, women have the opportunity to create spaces. And, we can create spaces, platforms, conversations for us to just deeply be held by each other and have these nourishing conversations without actually any fear, any judgment, just show up and speak what we need to say.
Right. And when you show up in those spaces, you might be thinking, well, what are they going to think of me? Like, what if I say something strange and weird? They're going to judge me. But when you're showing up intentionally to a space like that, every single other woman in that circle or group is feeling the same exact way. So you can relate to that. And then you can have compassion for that person because you know exactly what they're feeling. And then therefore can have compassion for yourself. You just like drop all of these walls and all these facades. And, I think one thing women do too is they try to show up to a space as how they think they're supposed to show up based on other people's expectations. But that's doing everybody a disservice because if you're not showing up as your authentic self, the other people there can feel that. They then get nervous and guarded because I can't trust her if she's not showing up as her authentic self. I can't show up as my authentic self. We're all just like hanging out, trying to fit some mold, pretending to be people we're not, trying to look perfect. But when you show up to the intentional spaces that you're talking about, it's like, screw all that. We're putting all that down. Who are you really? What are you feeling? What's going on? And to be seen for that is just so powerful.
It is, isn't it? What ways, for those that are listening that are like, oh, these girls are speaking my language, which I know it'll be all the listeners. Well, and men, what ways, what can be the first step for them to take back their own power?
So, right now, the life you're living right now is a reflection of what's going on inside. It's like taking an audit almost of like, where am I unhappy? What's not feeling good? Is it this job? Is it this romantic relationship? Is it this friendship? Pick one of those to start and then like start backtracking. How did I get here? Like, why am I unhappy here? What parts of it? And what is that showing me about myself? So if it's a romantic relationship and you're not feeling fulfilled and you realize that you're the one that's always trying to make it work and to be happy, ask yourself, well, where am I abandoning my own needs to make this person happy and to keep them around so they won't leave me? And then that goes into an abandonment wound. Where did that come from? Where in my life did I feel abandoned? What happened? You start dissecting all of it. About basically what it comes down to is you don't feel safe and you don't have love in your life. And so when you dissect all of that, which is not going to happen in like one sitting, it's a process. The following step is, how can I give myself now what I did not receive back then that created that wound? So in other words, now, how can I give myself love? How can I give myself safety? And that can be very small, big ways. Safety, for example. Okay, I live in this home. How can I make this home feel like my home make me feel safe, to be a reflection of me? Can I paint this wall a certain color that I love? Can I buy myself flowers? Bigger things such as, okay, next time I have a conflict with this romantic partner, I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to vulnerably express how I'm feeling and what I need. And then I'm not going to take responsibility for their emotional reaction. I'm going to stay right here in what I need. So it's those small and big things. I know what I just said was a lot. It's a lot of work in one little snippet, but that's a great place to start.
And I totally agree. Like the ladies that are listening that are in my group space, we do a lot of sacred inquiry. We do a lot of like journaling, meditation, going in and, sitting with the certain activation question to very much open and what sits under that and what's the next layer under that. So we can truly access not the programming, what we think we need to think, but what our soul needs.
Beautiful.
And I think that's really important. And I think it's really important right now, to do this work, to be part of this healing journey, because, Mother Earth needs us to. Our family, our children need us to. More than ever right now, as we transition and as things are changing so quickly around us, we need to start to get to know our own identity and our own inner voice and our own inner self.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing the healing journey now, you're retroactively helping those that came before you because you're changing the course of that lineage. And then exactly to your point, you're helping those that are coming after you in your lineage, but also just those around you. Because when you are doing the healing work, like we talked about, some will root you on, some will grow through it with you, some will fall away, but there will also be like those ones that are kind of quietly watching, who are being activated by what you say, who you're impacting just by doing the work yourself. They're going to look at that, see how your life is changing kind of slowly but surely, and want that for themselves. And maybe, quietly, without telling anybody, trying to do it themselves too. So you don't really know who you're impacting by showing up and doing the work, but you are impacting a lot of people.
I totally agree with what you've just shared. I feel, quite often when I do a reading for someone and then they come back and, I never remember people. And that's not, I mean, I'd love to remember, but I don't remember. God, my head would just be like, boom. But it's really interesting. I had a lady here the other day and she just said to me, everything that you said in my first reading, I wasn't ready to hear. I didn't want to know it. And she said, but it was everything I needed.
Yes.
And I went, she said, you activated something in me for me to start taking responsibility and to start to move closer to who I needed to be, not what I was being taught to be. And it was really fascinating because I was like, for myself, going, and I said to the lady, she was beautiful, I said to her, you know what? I actually needed to hear that today. Like, I actually needed to hear that today because I actually was like, I wonder if people, when I get my channeled messages, I know the ones that don't want to hear the message. I know deeply the ones that don't want to take responsibility. But I've always said I'm not going to fluff my work because it's about a soul. It's about we're here for our soul's development. We're here to, extend this and, to get more into our heart, to get more into what we need rather than what we're being told. And so it's fascinating because I didn't realize, as much as, obviously when you're counseling, when you're counseling, but I didn't realize how much my work as a medium really impacted change for people and their own healing journey.
That's so beautiful. And what's even more beautiful is how divinely things happen, and that you also needed that reflection to you to give you that little spark to keep going. I feel like that happens all the time on the journey. You get what you need when you need it, even just like the books that we were talking about. But in that moment, you both needed each other in different ways. And that's what's so beautiful about, again, we're all in it together and we're just helping each other.
Yeah, and we don't realize how cyclically we're connected.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
What other words of wisdom can you give to the beautiful listeners?
One big thing I would say is just remember to have fun, because this work can get so serious and you're constantly, looking in and reflecting and healing, and it can seem heavy. But the whole point of doing all this work is to just find joy and to have fun and live a good life. Again, that pain is unavoidable. It will still happen in life, but ultimately just don't get stuck in the constant healing, because that's another wound, right? I need to perfect myself. I need to keep going. I need to power through, even though my body's telling me to slow down and relax. So that's just another wound, like another different side of the same coin kind of thing. So the healing work is so important. It's so, so, so powerful, but also just really make it a priority to have fun and find joy.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So I always ask my guests 3 sacred shares. Okay. So the first question is, what would you tell your 5-year-old self now?
Ooh,
they're not
you needed to hear.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. She needed to hear a lot, but what I will say is that I would tell my 5-year-old self that the pain is for a purpose and you will get to the other side.
Oh, there's so much power in that. Oh, I just got shivers when you spoke that. So I can feel it, sister. I can feel it. If there's anything in the collective that you could change right now for humanity, what would it be?
I have to pick one. I will keep it with topic because this is a very important one. And I would just say that I want more women to feel empowered to speak what they actually need and show up for themselves, because that is so powerful and that will change so much about the collective right now. Stepping into that feminine will change so much in so many different ways.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And the last one is, what do you do for yourself for a sacred practice?
I have been journaling almost every day for the last 3 to 4 years. That is so powerful for me. I will go to the beach and I will sit there and I will journal, and I get so much from that. And also in those sessions, just literally sitting at the beach and just watching the waves, just doing nothing. So I'll journal and I'll do all that work, and then I'll just sit there and observe and just let my body relax. So it's a good combination of, the spiritual, the reflection, but also the grounding and the integrating. So that's a beautiful practice that I love.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And those that are listening that want to connect with you, find out more information, how do they go about finding you, sister?
Yes, so you can go to my website, ShannonEileenHealing.com, or find me on Instagram at ShannonEileen __.
I will share all those links on the podcast feed anyway too. Thank you so much, Shannon, for just sharing your journey and just your openness and your heart, because you were so connective and open and just speaking your truth. And I think, when we are able to speak our truth, that shows us how much we've actually healed. So thank you. And I know that the listeners would have got so much wisdom out of everything that you shared. They might not have wanted to hear everything, but they would have got, like, they might not have wanted to hear everything, but they would have got something out of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and just creating the space to have these conversations, because like we talked about, it's so important. So I feel very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.